again, this was a model, and I will tell you for PEC already, it's about 6 months in, it became very clear that there's no way that we can transport or utilize in a very detailed way the process that we're following in Albemarle. Each of our counties are just too different. And you can imagine some of the rural counties using the terminology of climate action or climate change is just, it's just almost impossible to utilize. So the other aspect of this is that when our work started, we understood that the county was undertaking their growth management policy and development of the comprehensive plan following the lenses, using the lenses of climate action and equity, and so are we. So this is a really important slide. What you can see here on the left-hand side is a very oversimplification of the county's process for the comprehensive plan update. You start with the build-out analysis, you establish growth management policy, then you start dealing with high-level goals and objectives, policy objectives, and then you get into strategies. And so what you can see on the right, and can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, so starting with the climate work that PEC was undertaking in collaboration with the county, all of that work, including, and I'll get into this later, all the other documents that the county has developed, like the Biodiversity Action Plan and the Climate Action Plan, all that work was utilized to create PEC's climate platform. Then that climate platform formed the foundation of our comp plan platform. And then you can see on the right, our strategic plan, because we are PEC after all, and our work in our counties, our localities needs to align with our overall PEC strategic plan. So that informed the comp plan process. And then as we work on policy goals and objectives, we, just like the county, returned to the 2015 policy elements as a starting point. So looking around, doing some research, here's an example of the Resilient Rural America project, where they actually, if you see this process, it's a very busy diagram, but if you look right here, here's a vulnerability and risk assessment, essentially. As this is a model, it's not for a locality, it's just a model process. So you can see that right there. Then they prioritize those actions, and then they integrate them into a locality's comprehensive plan. So we're not inventing something that's new. This is being addressed in different ways and means across the United States to varying degrees. So it takes, it's to integrate climate action into our comp plan update platform. You have to understand what the challenges are in the county right now. One challenge is that the Planning Commission appears to be resetting the process for the commission's involvement, with an engagement with the consultant team. There's also some structural concerns, how the actual document, the proposed structure, Tom and I have discussed this a number of times. That's a challenge. They're also undertaking a climate adaptation and resilience plan, but I think because of capacity, the county can't really undertake that work in a way that parallels this high-level policy goals and objectives initiative in the phase 2 of the comp plan update. And then one of the big challenges for accommodating growth over time is that dense compact development and redevelopment and the development areas are challenged by market forces, lack of sufficient infrastructure, capacity of schools, and community pushback. We see land use conflicts in the rural area. Others have brought up during the growth management policy, the inherent conflicts between policy elements. And here you are trying to preserve the rural area values, but you're also introducing large scale, for example, land disturbance activities or facilities such as solar facilities. And then you've got, in some cases, the potential for overly intensive agritourism destinations. There's also possible overly intensive service-related development in rural communities and villages. That's one of the major policy elements they're looking at right now. What should happen in rural villages? There's also the assumption that there must be perpetual year after year growth. We disagree with that. Misperceptions concerning the extent and role of agriculture and the value of working forests. We're doing considerable research on the county in terms of agriculture and working forests, and there's been a lot of pushback from some elected officials. We don't really have real agriculture here, and our working forests really don't have the same kind of value as other forests. That may be true, but they do have value. Residential commercial development in light industrial areas, that's a problem because where we're looking at economic development initiatives, for example, UVA's Biotechnology Institute and the Ravenna Station Futures Initiative, that's the Army's facility north. There's a major growth initiative up there, and what kind of land use impacts will there be, both on the development areas and potentially rural areas. And of course, funding to support more robust transit options, that's a huge challenge. The myth that expanding development areas will support development of affordable housing, lack of data support the expanding development areas to accommodate climate migrants. I've been working with the Weldon Cooper Center on population projections, and did they or did they not actually accommodate that? And it's a complicated answer I'm happy to address later. And then rapidly increasing renewable energy needs resulting from the massive development of data centers in Virginia. Virginia is the data center capital of the universe, at least in this country, and that is driving solar facility development in rural localities, including our county. And then there's the final question: will data centers appear in Albemarle? So I'm going to talk a bit, just an overview of our strategic plan that we've developed, recently completed, the focus areas that are relevant to our comprehensive plan platform are conserving and restoring the Piedmont's lands and waters, creating stronger, more sustainable communities, and shaping and advancing Virginia's transition to a clean energy future. And then just addressing the creating stronger, more sustainable communities. That's Culpeper, by the way. Planning for now and the future, fighting bad projects in incompatible land uses, which is a big component of our work down here, and improving livability and strengthening communities, which I work a lot with Peter Krebs on the development areas and those policy advocacy opportunities. Conserving and restoring the Piedmont's land and waters. So accelerating land conservation, which we are working across virtually all 9 localities, 9 counties on trying to accelerate land conservation. Protecting water in this county is a high priority for us, restoring wildlife habitat and expanding public access, and then shaping and advancing Virginia's transition to clean energy future, supporting a smarter, cleaner, more distributed energy system. And I'll get a little bit more detail about that. And then, so our climate action work is built on and is integrated with not all aspects of the county's work. But when we talk about climate action in this county, we're talking about the Biodiversity Action Plan, the Climate Action Plan, the Community Water Supply Plan, the Stream Health Initiative, Climate Vulnerability and Risk Assessment, which PEC was directly involved in, the Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan that is really coming out of the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, but the county has to approve that work, and the adaptation and resilience plan, sorry about that. And that's in progress, the county is doing it. And then there's a flood resilience plan that is going to be undertaken. So we have started some outreach and some PR. This was published, this spread in Cville magazine, and we're planning other initiatives as well. So our platform is a 16-page living document to be updated as needed. It's very detailed. It has recommendations that directly address climate risks, vulnerabilities and risks identified through the work that the county has done. And it is purposely developed to drive PEC's comp plan update policy platform. And it includes prioritized recommendations for PEC's comp plan. So it's actually prioritized, which is immensely helpful for the work I'm doing. So the 2 broad themes, PEC prioritizes equity and justice to ensure climate resilience. And I need to move this out of the way. Excuse me. Resilience for all who call Albemarle their home. PEC is committed to working with residents and community organizations to amplify the voices of those most affected and champion their needs. That's an equity component. Nature-based solutions are prioritized, including green infrastructure, provides a myriad of ecosystem, social, and resiliency benefits, and must be broadly included in land use planning at multiple scales. We have 5 climate-ready action areas. PEC recommends a series of actionable recommendations to help achieve meaningful progress, and I underscore the actionable component of that. PEC indicates which of these recommendations are specific to the county comp plan update, and those that are going to be addressed separately or overlap with PEC and our partners. So it's not exclusive to our comprehensive plan update platform. So we have 5 climate ready action areas. And those are champion livable communities and designated growth areas, conserve and enhance the rural area natural systems in the county to address the impacts of climate change, prepare for extreme weather events by developing response plans to protect lives and livelihoods, and support the diversification of the county's energy portfolio by increasing efficiencies and adopting renewables, and then adopt climate-ready planning processes and nature-based solutions. So that gives you a brief overview snapshot of our climate action work and the platform. Again, I believe Kat has already provided that platform to you all, and I can provide it again. We do not have a link on our climate action web landing page, but we will soon, and I'll provide this information to Tom, and it can be distributed. So this platform is a preliminary Albemarle County Comprehensive Plan platform. It's in draft form now. It's nearly complete. As you can imagine, we can't just develop a platform down here. And then launch it out into the public. It's got to be vetted by management and also board review. And so that will happen, and then we'll actually make it. We're using it now, but it's just not being made public. The platform is developed utilizing PEC Climate Action Platform, PEC's strategic plan, the Albemarle County climate action work, housing Albemarle, I want to stress, and the county's 2015 comprehensive plan policies. So we are taking a holistic approach, focusing on emphasizing benefits of the rural areas. So we're not ignoring the development areas, but my priority right now is, again, both are important, but we are focusing heavily on the rural area protection at this time. And all of my engagement work right now is principally in the rural areas right now, and with organizations that have an interest in which policies impact what occurs in the rural areas. And then we're looking at protecting the rural area from sprawl, reinvesting in rural communities, reinvesting in aging urban communities, and redeveloping aging urban commercial development. So I'll just read this. We envision an Albemarle County with the majority of its rural lands permanently protected, with intact natural and cultural landscapes, healthy waters, and working farms and forests that nourish vibrant, equitable, diverse communities where residents across all walks of life participate in decisions about its future. We envision the county's urban areas as vibrant, mixed-use, walkable communities with everyday access to open space, parkland, and recreational opportunities. We envision a county that is sustainable, resilient, innovative, equitable, and one that leads by example on the inland climate mitigation and adaptive planning. I will say that we are asked both internally and externally why we're so focused on the development areas. If we don't have quality development areas to attract and accommodate development, then we're going to see sprawl. So healthy, vibrant development areas is a major tool in protecting the rural areas. So the 5 major policy elements that we have in our platform are: preserve the natural systems, open spaces, and communities in the rural area, create stronger, more sustainable urban centers and neighborhoods and development areas, protect water resources, affordable housing, and shape and advancing our clean energy future. So I'm gonna focus. I'm not gonna go through all of them. Again, you'll be able to see those. We'll share the entire document, but I'm going to talk about water resources because they're very important to us. We've done a lot of work looking at water resources in the county, and then shape and advancing our clean energy future, which we believe is really critically important right now, given all the work that's being done on climate action, both in the city and the county. So that's a familiar map to the left. That is the development areas map. When I meet with people and community organizations in the rural area, they do, in many cases, what I hear is that the county does not focus equally with intentionality on the rural areas and the rural area communities in particular, as they do on the development areas. So for example, in the 2015 comprehensive plan, the rural area chapter is actually the rural area plan. In the new structure of the new comprehensive plan update, that structure doesn't exist. Rural area will be addressed as a subsection of a land use and transportation chapter, the same with the development areas. So we believe there needs to be more intentionality in the planning work that goes forward in the county regarding the rural areas. It's not lost on us that you look at this map and what you see is a bunch of white space. And I could go on that, but if you look on the map on the right, and because water is so important to PEC, and it is the protection of drinking raw water sources is the reason we have the rural area in the county. If you go back to the late 70s and early 80s, it's a fascinating story of how ultimately the rural area got established, and it was basically land disturbance results in transport of sediment, which means you're filling up reservoirs. And so look at the percentage of the county that is supplying raw water to both the rural areas and the development areas and the city and the University of Virginia. So that's very important. Here, these are two maps from the biodiversity plan. This doesn't look like an empty rural area to me. It looks like an incredibly high-performing landscape, cultural and natural landscape. And what you're looking on the left is the forest blocks, large blocks, small blocks, and other tree cover. We have a high percentage of tree cover, and you can look at the calculations done to support the county's climate action plan, and the tree cover in the county has a significant role in sequestering carbon. It's a major role. It obviously is protecting water resources as well. And if you look on the right, you're looking at the major conservation focus areas. So this is not an empty area. I'm not preaching to the choir here, but I understand, we all understand that, but this is the messages that PEC is taking forward. And then of course, this is PEC's map. All the green are easements. So you add in the easement areas, you add in the brown, which are vast areas of a National Register of Historic Places, rural historic districts, and you're looking at the combined historic and cultural value of our rural areas. So I'm going to talk a little bit about protection of water resources. This is something that's very, very important to me. It's important to Kim Biasioli and Kat Imhoff. We believe the county, through growth management and resource protection, must ensure its communities have adequate water supply, present and future. And so because of these watersheds and their role, we are looking at likely impacts. And so when Woodbridge Solar came forward, we did not oppose that project, but I'm a landscape architect that's been practicing for 35 years, and I have an expert knowledge on what happens when you disturb large areas, hundreds of acres at a time, and in phase development, and how erosion sediment control measures actually function, and same with stormwater management. And we have been looking all over the Commonwealth and seeing failures related to erosion sediment control and impacts on streams. So there are best practices, there's ways to deal with this, and that's something that we're advocating through our work on the comp plan, but also the new solar facility ordinance that's being developed right now. And we believe the county should prioritize continued implementation of the climate action plan, biodiversity action plan. The stream health initiative is really, really important for us, and the completion of the county's climate resilient and adaptation plan. So how does the county view the critical importance of water resources? We believe they have a good view of water resources. The county supervisors voted in favor of accelerating the completion date of the pipeline connecting the Ragged Mountain Reservoir to the South Fork of the Ravenna Reservoir. They moved it from completion in 2035 to 2030. I just got a presentation by Bill Moyer with the Ravenna Water and Sewer Authority. And then the county is also supportive our RWSA and the county is supportive of retaining the 1300 Buck Mountain future reservoir site, which has been stopped because of the spiny mussel. And I asked Bill, why are you retaining the site? And he said, because there is a very serious concern about a likely future droughts of record that are resulting from climate change. So these two moves right there are really critical. It's important to us to hear this so that we're seeing serious action taken by the county and their partners to protect our raw water resources and our natural systems. In terms of energy, we feel that I'm deep into this in the county, and focusing on a single solution won't work for Albemarle. We cannot just look at utility scale solar as a silver bullet. It's coming, it's here. There's 4 projects that have already been approved. We do not oppose those facilities, but we insist that best management practice, and now all of that is evolving. And if anybody's paying attention to the solar ordinance development, the county planning commission and supervisors are getting all kinds of information from their the Berkeley group regarding best practices. And so far it looks pretty promising. But we are very concerned about these very large scale land disturbance projects. We also are concerned about those projects because of the loss of working forest in particular, because they are being targeted, but also primate soils. And so we're working to support an energy system that is smarter, more efficient, and better accounts for the negative externalities arising from choices we make about energy consumption, generation, transmission, and distribution. And that's another way of saying we're looking at those large-scale solar facilities because of data centers and across Virginia. And you can't uncouple what's happening with these larger facilities. So what PEC is looking at are typically smaller facilities, ones that can go into distribution lines, for example, versus transmission lines, some that help farmers continue to farm, but don't take up the entire leasable land, don't take up entire working forests. There are models for these, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about those models. So right now, what we're looking at in this county, and they do touch on climate action, are the criteria for the development area expansion, how, when, and where those areas would expand. Sprawl leads to vehicles miles traveled, land disturbance in rural areas that could have adverse impacts, loss of tree cover, that they're called activity centers in the development area. Right now, generally PEC doesn't have any heartburn about what's being discussed about in the development areas. It's typically what's called smart growth, and they're looking at trying to create these walkable, bikeable centers within the developed area where people live, work, and play. All of that makes sense. Get people out of their automobiles, get them into transit, and we look at that very favorably. The rural crossroads communities right now, there could be the risk of interpreting the notion that there could be expanded services in these areas as a kind of sprawl. And not one single rural crossroads community or rural community is the same. They're all unique, have their own issues, separate issues. So we're concerned about sort of a one size fits all. And I'm working in these communities now, trying to understand what's important to them. I'm hearing a lot about the impacts of agritourism, farm wineries, farm breweries that are overscaled, overly intensive, that are causing traffic problems and potentially impacting groundwater supply. And then the other is rural interchanges, which is pretty simple. It's 3 interchanges principally that are rural, and what kind of development would go on in those. And then our engagement going forward, what we're doing is continuing to build alliances, meeting with other organizations. We just met with Southern Environmental also. We have multiple times talked about how we can work together on climate action and the comp plan update. I'm commencing a program of periodic emails to community members and organizations. If anybody wants to be included on that, you can reach out to me. Tom has my email address, and I will get you on there. This would be topical elements that are paralleling what's going on with the county's comp plan update going forward, and just updating people, looking at the issues, sharing PEC's positions and our policy positions on whatever it is that we're dealing with. Those 4 are ongoing right now that I just showed you. We're going to continue to directly engage with community organizations, meaning meeting with people directly, face to face in their communities. And we do. I work with individuals on advocacy work, and I work with organizations. And then we will always continue to engage with the Planning Commission, the supervisors, and county staff. And all I can say is strong partnerships are the key to our work. So I'm always available, and not only for me and PEC to share what we believe are good policy elements, but also to hear what other organizations value, and perhaps even to debate or to discuss what we may be off track, or we may need to emphasize some aspect of our policy or something that we're missing. We don't plan on, or neither will be, the one, a single shopping cart full of policy elements that everybody can agree with on that's why there's other organizations, some that focus exclusively on affordable housing or climate action. What you're hearing from us is reflective of our overall PEC strategic plan, policy elements, and there are some organizations that do things better than we'll ever do. So we're never going to be the perfect organization to be able to advocate on all aspects. Just like the SCLC cannot tackle everything in the county, they have so much that they're doing in other regions and other states. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I'm going to exit out of here.